What's going on there, guys? Earthmaster here, checking in on this party night, Saturday night, December 19th, 2020 is the date. 7:23 West Coast time here, kind of doing an early update video. We'll take a look at the activity going on around the globe here. Quite a bit of earthquake activity out there in the North American plate in areas where we don't normally see a whole lot of earthquake activity. Let's go ahead and zoom over here to the other USGS map so we can take a look at that specific mentioned earthquake activity here. Kansas seen a whole lot of shaking going on. That is for dang sure. There was a pretty good size earthquake out there on the Colorado and Utah border, a 4.3 striking out there around LaSalle, Utah, at a depth of about 0 kilometers. Now, checking out this, the details of these earthquakes here, at least of this specific earthquake, shows that it has been reviewed by the folks, the geologists there at the USGS, that this is a real earthquake, and it did happen, a 4.3. It's not a false earthquake or any type of instrumental, mess up on the seismograph. Pretty good sized quake out there, 4.3 near LaSalle, I guess. The Did You Feel It reports there. A few folks reported feeling it, not a huge number. Of course, out there in that part of the area of the country, it's all desert. Not a whole lot of folks living out there. Of course, a lot of the folks out there may not even have internet, or they don't care to have internet. They just want peace and quiet. But a little bit of shaking going on out there in that region of the world. You can see the map there. This specific map is just going off of reports, community internet intensity map there. So this is not specifically an organized map of what you would feel in a certain area. This is just due to the community reports here. Some light shaking going on. I'm pretty certain around the main area there. It'd be probably right around some moderate activity, but at least according to the the community reports, there is not a whole lot of shaking going on there, or at least it wasn't felt super strongly. It's a pretty sizable quake if you really think about it. 4.3 out there where we have not seen any specific earthquake activity in quite a long time. Yes, there has been some earthquake activity outside of Salt Lake City and areas well up here to the north. But in this specific general area, we have not seen a whole lot of movement here. And it is roughly at about surface level. You can see there was a 3.3 earthquake prior to this 4.3, so a little foreshock there. Looks like at about 20 minutes or so, right out here in this region here. I don't think there's a whole lot of folks out there. That would be my prime spot, I guess, for living. Of course, that's me. Let's go over here to the satellite view to check that out real quick. Obviously, no fracking operations going on out there. I can't say for the same out there in Kansas, but I remember seeing this through from the airplane one time. This little river. I'm not for sure if that's the Snake River. Could potentially be the Snake River, but I'm not seeing any type of fracking operations or anything like that out there. Excuse me. Looks like the Dolores River, at least in certain areas. It kind of reminds me of the Snake River, but all right. So yeah, a couple earthquakes out there in the Utah area. Of course, this here on the USGS map, we're looking at the Colorado area. Even though they haven't mentioned 28 kilometers east of LaSalle, there you can see the actual earthquakes taking place there on the Colorado side. You got to remember, folks, a lot of these mountains up here, built-up mountains, the Rockies, all the areas in between here and the West Coast have been built up over millions of years due to plate tectonics and whatnot. So it's not uncommon to see you know, earthquakes taking place out here. And I believe there's a very strong area, or North American plate's underneath a very strong area of movement and pressure at the moment. We've seen some earthquakes taking place outside of Idaho, or in Idaho, I should say, outside of the Sawtooth Fault System, areas to the north and to the west, and some abnormal areas that we haven't seen earthquake activity. And also there in Kansas as well, seen a pretty good uptick in earthquake activity. Let's go ahead and drop this down to the all magnitudes here. Not going to make a huge difference, right? But it will make a little bit. We're looking at just about 7 earthquakes here over the last 24 hours right around Wichita, a highly populated area. I see my Facebook page blown up with reports of it. Shaking rooms, shaking doors. And this is just coming off at 3-pointers, 3.5, 3.4, a couple 2s in there as well. The latest, a red circle there indicating a 2.9. But definitely significant movement going on out there. You can see the did you feel it responses here from the folks there in Kansas. Quite a bit of folks reported the shaking. You know, this is not some major mega quakes out there, any type of large earthquake, but it is some movement going on in the area where, well, who's to say earthquake activity out there in Kansas is common? It's really not. But there is a specific fault system that does run through parts of Kansas out there and into this area. This 3.5, at least this one struck at about 2.2 kilometers below surface. The rest of the earthquakes there striking a little bit more deeper. And there is obviously fracking operations out there, natural gas drilling and whatnot going on out there. But specifically in this area, if you take a look at the activity here, most of these quakes, well, you know, it's hard to say what's going on out here in this area. Large residential region. I can spit it out tonight. But who's to say what's happened here before? You know, if there's any type of old injection wells and whatnot, that's obvious sign of weak crustal areas out there that underneath pressure that would collapse, obviously, and introduce an earthquake. If you're curious, we're gonna look at that fault system here in just a second. But if you're curious about the largest earthquake out there in the Kansas area, was a 5.1 magnitude quake. Okay, now large earthquakes are not common out there, but this 5.1 struck well to the north of the area of Wichita, obviously, back in looks like 1867. Caused some minor damage and some looks like several folks injured there. Here's a little map showing you the specifics of this fault system I'm just mentioning here. It's called the Humboldt Fault, and also the Mid-Continent Rift System here in the green. The area to the south here, and this red area is where we're seeing the activity there around the Wichita area. Let's go ahead and see if I can find out where that went to here. Okay, here's a little bit better view. It's not going to let me zoom in too much here, but got Oklahoma down here, Kansas, Nebraska. Beautiful areas to chase in the summertime, springtime for storms. Blue area out here, you got the Humboldt Fault Zone. It extends into right around Oklahoma City, to be exact there. This area extends through Wichita, Kansas area, where we're seeing this earthquake activity. It is a fault system out there, and the specifics of the fault is, according to the Wikipedia article, it claims it's a normal fault or series of faults that extends from Nebraska southwestwardly through most of Kansas. There's not a whole lot of data on it here. Of course, these folks here are indicating a 5.5, right? The other article mentioned a 5.1, I believe. Let's see where that went to. Not for sure where it went to, but I could have swore it was a 5.1. So, all right, these guys on the Wikipedia article indicating the largest quake there happened near, well, of course, the 1867 Manhattan, Kansas earthquake, 5.5 on the Richter scale, was reportedly felt way out in Iowa. So larger quakes can take place naturally. You know, mankind has created the weak crustal spots, and when the continent is under pressure, obviously, due to normal plate tectonics, things are gonna pop there first, right? Things are gonna release energy there, where fracking operations have been taking place over the years. You know, it's a given. It's definitely a known scientific fact that fracking operations do create earthquakes, no doubt. How big? Well, that's weird. I just heard another noise in the house. Not for sure what's going on there. That's kind of strange activity. But anyway, yeah, fracking operations do contribute to the activity that's taking place there, out there in this part of the country. I gotta find out where this went to. Hold on one second here. Well, here's a little article from this website here. The truth is, earthquakes, and this is kind of backing up what I say. Earthquakes occurring with frequency in the country and probably around the globe is due to the ventures of the petroleum industry. When a well is drilled, it is permanent, and the damage done in regards to that drilling cannot be reversed. So when you get pressure built up in an area of creating weak spots in the crustal spots of the earth there, yeah, you get these earthquakes. Not huge ones, but they're pretty common there. The Humboldt Fault is a good example of the problems with fracking. It is primarily a stable fault with no seismic activity. On a rare occasion, there is some movement. The increased drilling that accompanies fracking is creating its own instability while also loosening existing faults. A good thing they're not doing this stuff around the New Madrid fault zone, right? That would be some chaotic playing with fire. You do that stuff around the New Madrid, you're looking at potential devastation there. Who knows? Maybe they are. Anyway, folks, there's a lot of activity going on out there in Kansas. You know, it's nothing to be concerned about too much. There's potential, obviously, for some natural earthquakes going on out there whenever you have drilling, fracking operations. That Humboldt Fault system sits out there, and it's obviously an active fault. Over the last 30 days here, let's check this general activity here. Not a whole lot within this Wichita area. You can see those white quakes there indicating the older earthquake activity. And that sits back, looks like late November. A couple 2-pointers out there. All within the same vicinity here. Not a whole lot. Within about 20 miles or so outside of that region. Of course, Oklahoma, you talk about fracking. Talk about fracking, right? Oklahoma's fracking capital. Texas as well. I'm really surprised Texas hasn't seen too much more earthquakes out there. But it's coming. It's coming. You know, things... All I can say is consequences. You know, actions have consequences. When you start drilling into the earth and creating all these weak spots and sucking out all the life, there's going to be consequences, that's for sure. So this, going back over here to this 4.3 that struck out there. Not a whole lot. There hasn't been a whole lot of earthquake activity over the 30 days or so that this USGS map is showing. So we're kind of watching this. Just an oddball quake. You know, when we see oddball quakes, we kind of question it. What's going on out there? Obviously, when you see movement along that major plate boundary, such as the North American Pacific Plate, into the Sierra Nevada up through Idaho and Salt Lake City region. That's common. We've got a lot of mountains out there. Things happen. There's a lot of plate tectonics out here in the western part of the North American plate. Check out Oklahoma. Come on, folks. Lay off the fracking. So, yeah, things are definitely on the movement out there, folks. Kansas, don't be too worried about a major quake. You know, I'm sure expect some more shaking going on. I don't think we're going to see anything major. Eventually, this stuff will die out and calm down. But for now, you know, a little bit of nerves being rattled out there. Taking a look at the rest of the globe here real quick, or at least the West Coast out here in California. Let's go ahead and zoom back over here to the Northern Cal area. Pretty quiet, folks. Nevada's seen some activity. Not a whole lot of movement out here in Southern Cal. In fact, relatively dry when it comes to the earthquake phrase out here. Not a whole lot of movement. Up here in Washington, some more quakes going on along the Seattle fault. A little 1.8 and also a, well, you got that 2.4 up there on the Seattle fault. That's a region to watch very closely, as this area can see a major quake right around the Seattle area. We're talking about, can't remember the exact magnitude, but potentially up around upper 6, lower 7s up here along the stress fault system. That would put Seattle in a major hole, so to speak. Alaska, very quiet. Of course, there's standard earthquake activity up there, and not a whole lot of movement out here along the western part of the Pacific Ring of Fire either. Most of the activity well underneath, I wouldn't say underneath, but along the North American plate area. This is kind of inland of the old American craton here, kind of interesting. But, you know, you can never say never. Never say that any place is never going to have earthquake activity. You can never say that North Dakota is ever going to have any. Take a look at the U.S. hazard real quick. Kansas is in a very quiet area when it comes to the U.S. potential for major earthquake hazards there. So you can never really say never out there when it comes to earthquakes. On the New Madrid, pretty quiet. I haven't seen a whole lot of earthquake activity out there in that specific zone. So, Yellowstone National Park, real quick, folks. I don't want to make this a super huge long video. We're already working on how many minutes here? Oh, about almost 20 minutes or so. Not a whole lot of movement. I think that 4-pointer, that 4.3 did show up on a couple stations there on the Moose Creek, Idaho area. You can see that kind of an oddball. I mean, this is obviously a distant quake, but kind of a, I don't know, kind of a weird signature there on that seismograph station there from that 4-pointer down south in Colorado. Other than that, no swarms, no earthquake activity to report in Yellowstone. Trimmer map. Let's see if we can get this thing to work tonight. Yes, we can. No movement today. Take a look at yesterday. No movement. Kind of odd, right? No movement. Well, at least minimal activity there on the 17th of December up around the Seattle area where that Seattle fault system sits, and down south in southern Oregon. But rather strange. No movement at all over the last couple days here. Very strange. What else we got here, folks? Solar weather, pretty quiet. There's not a whole lot of movement going on, or at least a whole lot of solar flare activity on the sun. In fact, right now the sun is blank with no sunspots. Very quiet activity on the beautiful surface of the sun right there. Alright, guys, have a good night. We will chat you guys a little bit later. If there is any viewers out here in the Kansas area, and you did happen to feel the earthquakes over the last 24 hours, I would like to know kind of what you guys felt, maybe what it felt like. You know, I've seen a couple reports there on Facebook and whatnot, but I would like, you know, maybe your own explanation as to how it felt, maybe what rattled. If there was stuff swinging, who knows? I would definitely like to hear your input on that. So let me know in the comments on this video, or you can also send me a message on my Gmail email account, earthmastermail@gmail.com. So have a good night, folks. We'll chat you guys a little bit later. Stay safe out there, everyone, especially out there in Kansas. Have a good night.